Okay, fam, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin metrics and the Bitcoin dominance, and I'm also going to speak a little bit about the Fed and what the weight of the elections may hold with that. So that being said, let's get it. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about here before anything else is actually the Fed. Okay, so why am I talking about the Fed in a Bitcoin video? Well, it's quite simple. The Fed has to adjust to whoever the next sitting president is, okay? And Trump has already came out publicly and basically said, and again, you guys know my stance on this, Trump is probably going to be the victor here, okay? He's already come out publicly and said two things, okay? Number one, he wants to fire Jerome Powell, which I'm not sure I'm necessarily on board with that. I think Jerome Powell is a great Fed chairman. I think he should stay Fed chairman if Trump would allow him to do it. That's up to him. I mean, obviously it's Trump's choice, but the second thing is that Trump said that he wants to get interest rates down fast. Okay. So why do I bring this up? Well, it's pretty simple because look, based on all the data that we've gotten so far from the financial markets, pretty much the markets are coming out and saying, yeah, okay, we expect a quarter basis point cut this month. Here's where this may change. Okay. Once Trump gets elected, and again, he won't actually get, the tradition is they get inaugurated, I think, on sometime in early January. I don't remember what the exact date is. So in terms of selecting, and again, I could be wrong about this. Maybe this all changes before January, but at the very earliest, I'm seeing like January of next year this taking place. Once he gets in office, he may just go tell Powell, hey, you know what, dude? 50 basis point cuts. That's it. I don't want to see any more quarter basis point cuts. Don't draw this crap out. Get to it. And Powell might be like, holy F, yikes, like I'm about to lose my job. I better do what I'm told or I'm going to get fired. Do understand that the Fed members technically, according to the law that they have to abide by, they technically can't really get fired. But whenever a new president is elected, they have the right to choose a new Fed chairman if they want to do so. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? So we may still get the quarter basis point cut in the event that Trump does not make a move on the Fed by either this month or next month, assuming he gets elected, which he probably will. In that instance, we'll still see the quarter basis points cuts most likely for this month and next month, okay? But come January, we might get a whopper 50 basis point cut. I do just want to point that out so you can see it's basically 425 to 450 here. January 2025. Looks like it didn't really change much. I mean, maybe there's a chance of a quarter basis point cut here. I'm just going to make the call that I think it becomes a bigger cut in January with Trump being elected. Now, in the event that he does actually make a move on the Fed before his inauguration, again, he is the former president, so he's already done this. In that instance, we may actually see the bigger cut come next month. Okay, so I want to point that out. That's extremely bullish for crypto markets. Just so you all know, the faster I'm not necessarily saying that interest rates coming down fast is a good idea. That's usually markets panic sell when that happens. But in this case, I think markets would actually be bullish on it. There may be maybe some kind of pullback, but I don't think it's going to be too extreme. But that would basically convince the money that's on the sidelines to flow into crypto and Bitcoin and risk on assets. So let's look at this other stuff. Okay, so you guys already know basically kind of my thesis here on the crypto search term and the Bitcoin search term. We're sitting at all-time lows, which means the bull run hasn't really started yet. Okay, and retail is not really here. Because if either one of those were true, we would be sitting probably somewhere between a 50 to 100, and we're not even close to that on either one of these metrics. Fear and greed. The one thing I will say about this is usually when we get into these major extremes, one way or the other, we do usually sit in that area for a long time. So you can see we kind of sat in it here for months and months and months between April to June, and then got down here in July to about roughly October, September, somewhere in there. The bear market lows, of course, the bull market highs. So what I'm basically saying here is because we just now are getting back into back into the greed territory, I think we're likely going to be up here for a while. Probably, I would say a good 6 months at least. Okay, that's usually how this goes. Again, that would line up perfectly with the bullish timing of the cycle. Okay, so MVRV, you guys know my stance on this one. This one is extremely cheap. It's not the perfect level of cheap you'd want to get in, ideally, on Bitcoin when this is in the green. Get out when it's in the kind of upper boxes here. But this one is a 2 out of 10. So 2 out of 10, that means it's basically about 80% off Bitcoin is according to this metric. So that one I would say is pretty bullish. Bitcoin rainbow charts. So this one, pretty much the gist of this one is every time the halving happens, we usually chop sideways into the blue line. And this is literally happens since Bitcoin's inception. And then eventually when the bull run starts, we rocket all the way up over the course of months. And I mean, I literally can't even make this stuff up. Every single time you guys can see it happen. And what are we doing right now? We are on the blue line, getting ready to ramp up. Okay, so Nupal. This one's kind of a mixed bag. I think this is being skewed because of the Bitcoin ETFs, like I said before. But just understand, based on the price action and the patterns of the chart, it is likely, in my opinion, that what we're seeing is a pullback in time and also accumulation for anybody that's buying in that kind of bull flag pattern, which again is accumulation or I mean, it could technically be accumulation or distribution, but a bull flag is a continuation pattern. Usually you go up into the flag and then you make the flag and then you go up out of the flag. Okay, that's usually how it works. But by this metric, again, I would say it's kind of a little jaded based on the ETFs, but we're still not in the euphoric grade box. So in my opinion, Bitcoin could still have quite a bit of ways to go on this. Okay, Pi cycle top. I think this is probably one of the more important indicators. Like I told you guys before, when we get below the yellow EMA, we usually don't stay there long, especially during the middle of a bull run. We get below it and then we come back above it. That's exactly what we're seeing here. You can see this has happened back here in 2012. It happened a little bit in 2012 again, and then 2013 after that mid-cycle correction, and then went back up. And even here in 2015, it happened a little bit. Then we took off, and can't really count that because that's the bear market lows. But during the pandemic, we did get below it. Even before that, we were below it for a little bit, and then eventually went back up. So we're seeing pretty much the same thing here, okay? So a few things to note about this. The bottom EMA is 62,000. The top EMA is 115,000. Usually the indicator actually triggers when the two lines either touch or cross, which we are very far away from. The price would have to increase by about 45,000. Roughly about 45,000 just to get up to the green EMA. So we're way off from that. The other thing I want to point out is Bitcoin does usually not go for its final rip to the all-time highs until we get above the green EMA, which means at this point we have to go to 115,000 just to get to it. And then 116,000 and above would be the actual kind of real ramp up of Bitcoin at that point. Okay, so M2 money supply. This one's pretty basic. Every time we get the green, it usually gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as the blue line, the M2 supply, and also the price of Bitcoin go up in sync. There is one thing to point out here that the M2 money supply does on occasion. It looks like it does on occasion actually front run the price of Bitcoin. So just trying to double check here and make sure if that's actually right. No, maybe not. Maybe it is pretty in sync. But regardless, you guys can see that the M2 money supply overall has a series of higher highs and higher lows, and the price of Bitcoin is going up with it. Again, as the Fed and the central banks around the world continue to cut rates, which I suspect is not going to stop. Okay, they're going to keep cutting rates because that's usually what they do. When they hike rates, they keep hiking them. And when they cut them, they keep cutting them. Okay, that's usually how this goes. As the banks around the world cut these rates, we're going to see these bigger green peaks, and the M2 money supply is going to keep going up, and the price of Bitcoin will go up in accordance with its timing. All right, so going over to the Bitcoin charts here. I mean, it looks pretty bullish on the charts. I will say this, okay? So I'm going to start out on the weekly time frames. So again, we have, and I got to zoom out for this because this is like a ridiculously long cup and handle pattern. And I mean, it's not actually that ridiculous because the one on gold, the cup portion on gold is literally a decade long before the actual handle portion was created. Let me double check on this one, but I'm pretty sure that's right. You guys will see another cup and handle here. For this one, I actually need to go out to the monthly time frame. Yeah, so here it is. You see this huge cup and handle. Okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous. This thing was, just the cup portion was 9 years, and then the handle was like another 3, and then we got the breakout. So these cup and handle formations, I mean, they could take any amount of time. Again, we're looking at the macro scale here, so this would naturally take quite a bit of time, right? So cup, handle, and then if I give you guys the measurement here, and the measurement would basically be from the neckline down to wherever the low is at the cup portion of it, then you get your breakout, which is pretty much right around there, and then the target would be all the way up here at roughly about $275,000 for the cup and handle. Okay. The bull flag is a little bit different. So bull flag would be something like this. And I gotta try to get this thing out of here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do it. Okay, so the bull flag target here would be roughly about $130,000 Bitcoin. Again, that's still pretty good. I mean, that's almost double the current price of Bitcoin. So I don't know what this line was for. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, so the other thing I want to point out here is this is also a descending channel. It could, depending on where you draw the lines, it could also be interpreted as a falling broadening wedge. All of these patterns are bullish, okay? So it looks really good. And on top of that, we have higher highs and higher lows. So higher highs, higher lows, you can see it forming right here. We are creating it looks like another kind of base here at 68,300, which again is above these candle tops here. That's another structure break to the upside, which is a bullish pattern. And then we should theoretically launch straight off of this gold line here. There's one other thing I wanted to point out, or a couple of things actually I wanted to point out here. So you can see this line here. Okay, this is not perfect. I gotta rearrange this. I don't know why TradingView keeps doing this. It's really annoying. But you can see that we're going back to the 2017 peak, and then we hit it here in 2021. So, and I have to draw this out for a little while to actually give you guys roughly a accurate estimate here, but you can see based on this line, if it were to hit this line again, which could be considered to be resistance by the bears, roughly about $225,000 Bitcoin. Now, the last thing I will do here is the macro Fibonacci retracement, which you guys already know my stance on this. So the range could be anywhere from 105,000 all the way up to 240,000. Again, my kind of average for Bitcoin is roughly about 140 to 220,000. I think that's more than realistic. And that is still nearly a 3x the current price of Bitcoin. From the lows, a $220,000 Bitcoin would be more than a 10x. It would be like a 12, 13, 14x, something like that. Okay, so we got the golden cross on the MACD. That's obviously bullish. You guys can see last time we got this, it was it didn't turn red for a very long time. So again, that would line up perfect with the cycle timing. Now, what I will say is this, okay? So if we're going to see an absolute freak out by retail on Wall Street, like, holy F, dude, we need to get in this right now. We need to get into crypto right now, like serious FOMO, okay? We're talking like everybody aping their mortgage and their car and selling. I'd never suggest you sell your kids, but you get my point, okay? Literally selling everything they have under the sun to jump into the space if they're early. We need to see at least a daily or weekly candle close above 74,000, where this red, the top of this red wick is right here in this green one, okay? If we get a close above that on the daily or the weekly, it's pretty much a game on at that point, all right? So if I go to the daily here and I zoom out, you guys can see that in order to get a candle close, we would actually need to hit roughly about 73,900 or above with a full body close above that point. That would be a pretty early indication, in my opinion, that likely Bitcoin's already going to all-time highs. And then as we get higher and higher and higher, 90, 100, 120, 150, 200,000, as the price of Bitcoin ramps up more FOMO will kick into the markets. Okay. And more people are going to try to ape in because they're going to be like, they're going to realize real quick. They're going to be like, oh crap, man, we missed the bull run. We get in up here at 150, 200,000. Most people are late to this game. You guys are not going to be late. We're not going to be late, but you get my point, right? Okay. So enough about that. So I want to go over a couple other charts here. So the 2-week chart, and again, we don't look at this one too often, but I do want to point this out. You can see this candle right here in early October, which pretty much the breakout candle right there. It was a huge green candle, okay? And we closed above this gold line, and now it looks like we're getting ready to lift off of it. If this candle right here that we currently have closes above 69,600 on the 2-week time frame, that is extremely bullish. I would say that's another early signal that likely Bitcoin's going to all-time highs, which again would line up perfectly with the cycle timing. The monthly time frame, so this candle was slightly below that. We want to see a candle on the monthly at least above 71,500 with a candle body close, probably closer to like 72,000, I would say, just to be safe. If I'm going over to the 2-month here, you guys can already see we clearly got the breakout already. So the previous cycle top here would have been at 61,500. The candles that we closed here were already above those tops at 63,000, well, roughly about 63,000 even. And this candle pretty much put the nail in the coffin right here, okay? So if you guys had any doubts on the lower time frames, in my opinion, this candle right here is it. That is the signal. That's part of the reason why we've been loading crypto pretty heavily going into the all-time highs, because we're already seeing stuff on the charts and in the macroeconomics and even in the earnings that are telling us like, okay, this is it. Like there's a really, really high chance here that Bitcoin has actually already begun its bull run to go to all-time highs. Okay, so last thing here I want to point out, and then I'll get into the dominance, is the yearly chart. So we go over this on occasion just so you guys can kind of regain perspective on where we're at, okay? So every 4 years we get a bear market year in crypto. You can see 2011, well, in this case, this was an exception. So for some reason, there was only 2 green years here. But regardless, if we start from 2014, you guys can see 3 green years, 1 red year, and on and on. So 2014, 2018, 2022, which again lines up with the midterms in between presidential elections. Those were the bear market years. And then you have 3 green in between that. So you have the pre-halving year, the halving year, and the post-halving year. And then 3 green, 1 red, 3 green, 1 red. So as of right now, we are in the 2nd green year, which means that the rest of this year should be green. And then the next year should also be green. And by the way, the halving years usually line up right, or I should say Bitcoin going to all-time highs usually lines up right around the time of the election at the end of the halving year, which again is on the same year as the halving year. Okay, so now I'm going to go over one last metric here with you guys, and that is the Bitcoin dominance. When the ETH Bitcoin dominance becomes more relevant, I will bring that up to you guys. Again, basically pretty much that is the opposite or the inverse of the Bitcoin dominance, okay? So when the Bitcoin dominance is going up, ETH Bitcoin should be going down, and the inverse should also be true. So as long as this thing is going up, then Bitcoin is in control, okay? When it goes down, that's when we get the alt season. You guys can see what happened right here, all right? So in December of the halving year last time, we did hit the peak for the Bitcoin dominance, and then it fell off a cliff like a bird dropping out of the sky, just went straight down to the ground. That is usually when we start getting a lot of red candles on the weekly time frame. That is usually a pretty strong indication that we are likely going into the alt season, okay? So again, this is a rising wedge. This is a bearish pattern. It has broken out above this. There's not really much I can say about it. There is a possibility maybe it goes to the top of this range up here. It wouldn't surprise me, maybe 63%, and then we eventually get the dump. But again, you guys also have to understand Bitcoin also has to go to its final all-time high, or I shouldn't say final all-time high, but the all-time high that it would normally have at the end of the halving year. Beginning of the post-halving year, it has to hit that all-time high first before money will eventually flow into altcoins and we see a dump on this. Okay, that has to happen. And again, that usually doesn't happen until after the elections. All right, so hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.